Right, hello everyone. Today we're going to be looking at the web audio evaluation tool in order to make a multi-stimuli listening test. So the first thing we're going to want to do is go over to here and we're going to download the zip folder. They should have all the files that we need. I'm just going to put that in my downloads for now, and I will just unzip that quickly. Great, so we've got all the files we need in there. The next thing we want to do is pop open the terminal window. There it is. And we're going to find within this file this, where is it? The Python folder, because we need to run a little bit of Python through the terminal. So if you've not used terminal before, if you want to move around and change directories, you can use this cd command that will take you to a new directory. It will change the directory, and I want to go to my downloads. So if I start typing downloads, you should find it. We want to go into our web audio evaluation tool -master. There it is, perfect. And one last folder we want to navigate to is the Python folder. Cool, so it looks like we're in Python. If we hit ls on there, we can actually have a look at all the files that are contained within that Python folder, and we want to use the, where is it, the Python server. So once we're in that folder, we want to run a bit of Python, do Python 3 space, and then it was called the Python server.py. Great, so that worked. We're now running this local host on our machine. So the web audio evaluation tool is obviously designed to be used as a web interface that you could send out to people to complete anywhere in the world. But today we're just going to be looking at running it locally on our machine. If you're in a research lab or in a classroom and you want to conduct a listening test, you can just do it off of one machine, and then all the data will be stored locally on your own laptop or computer. You don't have to worry about a server or anything like that. So I'm going to take this local host. I'm just going to copy that so I don't have to type it all out again. Just make a new window here, and it's going to load some resources, hopefully. Let's see, it's taking a bit of time. Wow. Not sure why that's happening. Let's try this one more time. There we go. Just took a bit of time to load, and you can see I've already clicked on test creator once before. So it's got some examples for us to use. However, let's make one completely from scratch so you can see how to do it and follow along. Hit this test create. If you're working on a listening test already and you are like halfway through it, or you need to make some changes to it, you can load the file, the XML file, into here to make further edits. But we don't need to do that right now, so we're just going to hit next. This gives us an option to conduct many different types of listening tests. You may be familiar with the Mushra style listening test, where you have a hidden reference and an anchor. We're not going to do that for now. We're just going to use this APE style interface, which is a audio perceptual evaluation. It's a multi-stimuli test where each audio fragment is shown on one continuous slider, which is what we want. We want to see if one recording is better or worse than another recording. So let's hit next on that, and you can see we have this APE style interface up here. So we're going to talk through this test creator in a little bit of detail. Some things we might want to do right off the bat. You notice we have a few tick boxes up here. We want to randomize page order. So if we have more than one listening test and more than one page, we want to make sure that that's randomized for every participant when they sit down in front of the test. They're not always given the same order. There might be other times where you don't want to randomize and it's actually part of the test where things are carried out in a specific order. So just be aware of that. We might want to loudness normalize all the samples. So if we're, say, evaluating timbre differences, we might want to make sure we don't have any loudness disparities between the samples that could affect the perception or the subjective quality ratings for our participants. So it says if you're unsure, set it to -25. Let's go with that for now. Set it at -25. There might be cases where your listening test is specifically about loudness differences, so you obviously wouldn't want to normalize the perceptual loudness for that. So I think we just leave it as the fixed sample rate for now. We don't want any extra silence in there. Maximum number of fragment plays, I don't want to limit that. I want them to be able to play the samples as many times as they need in order to assess them accurately. And so we have a little test complete message. Thank you. I might just add a little bit to that. Thank you for completing my listening test. Okay. We have some pre-test calibrations here, some session metrics. So I want to know how long it takes them to complete my test. I might want to report on that in a paper. Collect fragment listening time. That will allow me to determine how long each fragment is played for. If there's one sample that's particularly difficult to evaluate that they have to listen to a lot of times, that would show up. We can collect the fragment initial positions. Might be useful to see if samples that start nearer the top end up being rated higher, and samples or stimuli that start lower down on the scale automatically end up lower down. We can see how the position is biasing their finalized ratings. We can track how the fragments are moved around on the slider, and some other metrics here. Right, pre-test survey. So you might want to gather some metadata about your participants. So we could have a survey type. We could have a questionnaire here. So we could have, we need to have a unique ID. So maybe I'll have experience and entry name, we'll just call that experience as well. Oops, experience. We'll make it mandatory, and we'll have a statement such as how many years of listening experience do you have? For example, could be anything you want, could be age, could be things like that. So that's one question there. Let's add another. Oh, so actually we want to have that as not as a question, but as a number box. So now they have to type in a number for that test. We might want to add another entry here that is a statement, so no question, but something they have to look at and read, and this might be called instructions. And we just have here saying, please rate the audio samples based on your own preference. There we go. So you might want to have them rating it on other kinds of metrics, quality, if there's some kind of compression codec, or base it on some kind of semantic descriptor like crunchiness or warmth or brightness, things like that. So we've got our pre-test question here and a little statement. Then we might want to have a post-test survey, such as what kind of qualities were you scoring the samples on? Were there any samples that stood out to you? And again, you can add entries there. You can do multiple different types of things. You can do a radio box where they have to check one only, and if they select another one, it will deselect the others. So for example, you might have something like which genres are you most familiar with, or which is your primary genre that you listen to or work with, and you can have rock, pop, reggae, hip hop, and they can only select one. You can have a slider, you can have a video, all these things you can have to set up the test before they even start evaluating anything. So we're not going to add anything in the post-test, and then we have our global interface. So let's make sure that all the fragments have been played. We don't want them to miss one. If for example, you have a lot of samples and they might not even evaluate one of those and just leave it in an initialized position. So check all fragments have been fully played. If you've got short samples, you might want to make sure they've actually listened to them all the way through. Or if you've got particularly long ones, you might want to not have that ticked or have it ticked, depending on what kind of thing you're looking at. Check if fragments have been moved. We definitely want to tick that one because we don't want any to be left in their starting positions, which are randomized. We can enforce a user scale if we want, so we can force them to have one sample that's all the way at one end of the scale and another one that's all the way at the maximum end of the scale. So we could do 0 and 100 if we wanted to, or maybe we have a little bit of leeway, so something has to be below 20% or above 80%, things like that. And then we just have some other things we can take care of, a mask and volume control, or page count, things like that. We're only going to add the one page for now, so we don't need to worry too much about the page count. Here we have a page, so I'm just going to be doing one page, so I'll just call this kick test. That's going to be my unique ID for this page. And the next thing I want to do is to set a common root for all my audio samples that I'm going to be using. So what I'll need to do in my media is put my folder. So I've got a sample of kicks here. Just put that into my media. If it will go. There we go, we've got kicks in there. So I've got 4 different recordings of a kick drum with 4 different microphones. So in here, I want to do media / kicks / and so that's going to make sure that all the audio I add is from this folder over here in media, within our web audio evaluation tool folder that we downloaded. So it's all self-contained. So we have our audio in the right place. We've told it to find it in the media and kicks. We don't want any repetitions. We want to loop the audio, so it's not going to stop when it gets to the end of the sample. Synchronous audio playback will just mean as we switch between the different recordings, it's not going to jump back to the beginning. It's going to carry on where the playhead is. Randomize fragment order. Let's definitely do that one. And we can fix the page position. So for example, we could have all the pages randomized, but make sure this one's always first or always last or somewhere in the middle, whatever we want to do. So we don't necessarily need a title, but we'll just call this our listening test. And let's see, what else do we need to do here? So we need to add an axis. So again, this should all be taken care of in the global settings, but what we can do is we can have specific pages have different things. So we can, for example, have one test page where you have some settings and another test page where you have other settings, but I'll just tick those anyway. So we have axis title. We'll have this as preference. We can have an image if we want. And I'll add 2 axis scales. Maybe I'll add 3, let's see. So we'll have position 100. We'll have this as most preferred. And we'll have this one at 0 position as the least preferred. Cool, so when they have the test page open, they know which direction to slide the stimuli towards. You don't want to leave that blank. They won't necessarily know what position the rating scales. They might put all their favorite ones, all the highest quality ones at the wrong end of the scale. So now we've got to add these fragments. So fragments are just what they call the audio, the stimuli that we're going to be using. So I'll make 4 of these. So I have one for each sample that we're going to be using. So I've got my 4 samples here, the 4055, the beta 52, the D6 and the D112. We actually need to save me having to type it out. So now we've got media, kicks, just make sure it's not capitalized. Oh, it is capitalized. So we need to make sure up here this is also a capital, so we are definitely going to the right place. Otherwise our audio is not going to show up. And we need to give this a unique ID, so I'll call this the DPA 4055. I can change the gain if I want to. I can change some other settings specifically for this one audio fragment. Then we've got the beta 52A. I'll just put in all my audio fragments in here, and we'll call this the beta 52. we will do the next one, the D6. We'll call this the capitals Audix D6. D6. There we go. And we've got lastly the D112.wav, and we will call this the D112. So we've got a unique ID for each of our fragments. We've got our URL hopefully in the right place, and we've got our axis scale, labels, and some settings that we've chosen to use for this one. So if we scroll back up to the top, hopefully I've not made any errors, we shall see. So that's validated. Well done, thank you. You can export this specification. Let's export this, and we're going to put this in our web audio evaluation tool. There it is, and we want to put this into our tests. I'll just call this demo_test. Save that. Hang on a minute, there's somebody at the door. Right, I'm back. So we've downloaded this, and now we want to run the listening test. So we can open up a new window here, and if we just copy this localhost, we don't need the test create bit. Instead, we're going to do localhost/test.html. You can see I've already done another listening test in here. .html $URL equals. So this is going to be where we navigate to our folder with the tests in it. We've got tests / and I believe I called it demo_test. So .xml. So if I run this, it's going to load how many years of listening experience you have. Our loads, let's say 10 years. Been listening to sounds a while. And then we've got our instructions. Please rate the audio samples based on your preference. I will do that. And start. So now you can see we've got our least preferred and most preferred scales here. This is a preference scale. And if I press this one, it's playing some kick drums for us. Here's a different sounding one, different microphone. And you can see I don't know which sample these relate to. I don't know if this is the DPA or this is the D6 or this is the D112 or this is the Beta 52. It's randomized. The starting positions were randomized as well. So just stop the audio for a second. So you can see every time we would load this page, these labels would correspond to different samples. I wouldn't know as the researcher which one was which, and the participants wouldn't know which one was which. And the order would be randomized as well. So just quickly evaluate these. So I think this one sounds okay. This one sounds really bad to me. I hate that one. And then we've got this one. Oh, I like that. That sounds good. Put this up there. Oh, can't quite get it to the end of the scale. I think that's just my screen. Bit of error there. And then we've got this one here. And I think this one's fairly good as well. So I'm happy with my selection there. I'm going to hit next, and now it says thank you for completing my listening test. So that listening test is done, and the results are saved within the web audio evaluation tool. So here in saves, we've got this big mess here of all the data that we've collected, the positions of each of the sliders, all the metrics we've chosen. And so if you have lots of listening tests and lots of samples, this can get quite long and quite messy. So it's hard to make out what's actually going on in here. We don't know. We could probably try and look and see certain things to pick out stuff, but luckily the nice people who wrote this have given us some more Python things here that we can use. So one thing we're going to want to use are, first of all, let's use our survey parser, and then we use our score parser after that. to parse this big messy XML that we're looking at for my results of the listening test. So I want to go back to my terminal window. I'll just terminate this now and start fresh. So assume that I've done all my listening tests. I've got my 20 participants, or however many you want. They've all done it. Now it's time to analyze these results. So as before, I need to navigate to my Python folder. So check we're in there. There we are. And we want to do Python 3. And we're going to use the survey parser. There it is. And now, we've got an issue, I think. Maybe I don't have something installed. Saves. Okay, so I don't have that installed right now, so we'll move on from that, but I need matplotlib by the looks of things. So what we'll do now then is we'll do the Python 3 space score parser, and that's worked nicely for us. So what that's given us is our ratings here. So we've got in our saves, it's now made this nice folder for us, and we've got our CSV file here. So you can see the scores associated with our listening test. So if I just move these out of the way, you'll be able to see that my least preferred here was the D112. That was that sample. That's at 0.03% of the scale. We've got the what looks like the DPA 4055, slap bang in the middle, 0.5, so about 50% of the slider. That looks about right. And then we've got my favorite one, turned out to be the beta 52, and second favorite, around 92%, was the Audix C6. So if I had multiple versions of this test, I'd have each row would be a participant. So this is a unique participant ID number. You'd have a whole row of a whole column of those for each participant, and you'd have the scores for each microphone that was rated. So hopefully that shows you how we can quickly make a multi-stimuli listening test. Obviously, you need to kind of configure it to your own usage of what you want to do with it. This is a very quick one with just 4 samples, but I might have up to 10 samples, and you just need to make sure that all the fragments have unique IDs and that the WAV files are all in the right places. So hopefully that helps you get started with conducting your own listening tests in the future. Goodbye.